All right, y'all, welcome back. So, I am actually really excited to be talking about Companion today, which was the last of my January watches, even though this video will release in early February. So, this movie was written and directed by Drew Hancock. I looked at his IMDb and didn't really recognize anything. It looks like he's done a lot more writing, so this may be one of his first directorial debuts. Jumping right in, we'll talk about the recipe, and for those of you new to Sugar and Frights, use my dog. This is where I talk about the elements that make up the movies, so things like characters, settings, things like that. And usually with recipe, I start by reading the IMDb plot synopsis. So for this one, the synopsis reads, a billionaire's death sets off a chain of events for Iris and her friends during a weekend trip to his lakeside estate, which is not what I would say is the synopsis, but I guess that particular synopsis is trying to be very vague about the details of the story. So, given that the IMDb synopsis is really vague, I kind of want to tread lightly on sharing too many details of the story before letting you know how much I'm going to dive into it. So, what I tend to go by is just by what's in the trailer. If you haven't seen the trailer and you don't want to be spoiled at all, I would say just stop the video now, come back once you've seen it, and then we can kind of discuss it in the comments below. So I'll keep it vague with what is revealed in the trailer for the first half of this review, and then I'll talk more in depth about the plot in spoilers. So this film follows Josh and his girlfriend Iris as they go to the middle of nowhere, essentially to a lake house, to visit with some friends for a weekend. This film stars Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. It also stars Harvey Guillen, who I was really excited to see. I didn't know that he was in this movie. I had avoided the trailers just to go in as blind as possible. So when he popped on screen, I was really excited to have him as part of the cast. He is best known for his role as Gizmo or Guillermo in What We Do with the Shadows, the TV show. It also stars Lucas Gage and Megan Suri. So talking about what is present in the trailer, right, we know that Iris, played by Sophie Thatcher, is actually a companion robot. So Jack Quaid purchased her and is using her as kind of like a girlfriend in a sense. So this movie on IMDb actually isn't listed as a horror. It does have a lot of horror elements, and I think I personally would consider it a horror, but it is primarily listed as a thriller sci-fi comedy. The way I describe it is a kind of fun, not really emotionally devastating episode of Black Mirror. So the film kind of explores the relationship between Jack Quaid's character Josh and Iris as she sort of navigates interacting with other people, how their relationship plays out with her being a robot. Another thing teased in the trailer is that at some point, Sophie Thatcher's character Iris murders somebody, and they have to kind of figure out what to do about that, essentially. It's also pretty much a single location movie. We just are present within the house that they go to, and we don't go too far outside of the house within the movie. We do see some flashback scenes and some kind of filler scenes that are shot in different locations, giving the characters backstory, but primarily we are within the lake house. So, talking about flavor, which is the themes present in the movie, right? You have a female presenting robot companion, right? So, there's going to be some themes around feminism, also themes about automation, about technology, things like that. So, talking about execution, I think that this movie really excelled in its little details. For those of you who have watched the Stepford Wives, either version, Sophie Thatcher's character Iris really embodies that kind of 50s look, and sort of is stylized in that way. And also, the first scene where we see her, she's walking through a grocery store pushing a cart in kind of a very sort of robotic, I guess is the only way to say it, right? She's walking in a really sort of strange way through the grocery store when she meets Jack Quaid for the first time. And the movie is really funny. I genuinely enjoyed watching it. Harvey Guillen is just perfect in everything that he does. But his dynamic with Lucas Gage, who just plays such a good bimbo, and we love that for him. Um, just it was a fun watch, and I think coming out of Wolfman and Presence, which were both kind of heavy watches, this was just really charming. Like it was a fun time at the theater. I enjoyed the movie watching it. All of the actors were great. I do love Jack Quaid. I love Sophie Thatcher. I think both of them have been sort of up and coming recently, and I enjoy seeing them in anything that they do. Lucas Gage has also been someone I feel like I've seen a lot of recently. I just watched the first season of White Lotus, as well as he was in the first kind of half of Smile 2. I haven't seen Megan Surrey in anything, but she was a good addition to the cast as well. All the characters worked really well together. It was fun watching them interact. The movie has a good soundtrack as well, which I believe was recently released on a pink vinyl, which I love. The score was maybe a little heavy at points, but just kind of did work well with what was going on. This is a small detail, but as someone who loves Valentine's Day, with Valentine's Day coming up, I loved the pink and red intro credits with the cursive companion. I thought that was really cute, and it's also carried in to the ending credits. Just a fun little detail, something that kind of added to like the overall aesthetic of the movie that I liked. It was well directed, well written. I had said that in a couple of the movies I saw in January, specifically Presence and Wolfman, that the writing, or maybe it wasn't the writing, but just the execution of the written lines, the talking was a little awkward for me. I think with Presence, it was mostly due to the long shots and sort of like the up closeness of it all that made it a little awkward for me. And then with Wolfman, I'm not sure what that was, but I found the execution of like the lines and just the way that the characters sort of grew throughout the movie in Companion, I really appreciated, and it kept me sort of going throughout. I saw a couple reviews saying that they felt the middle act to the third act kind of dragged. I didn't find the pacing to be really off. I think sometimes we were left sort of with one particular line of plot that maybe went on for a little too long, but overall, I felt the pacing was appropriate. It worked for me. So, being as this is not marketed as a horror movie, it's not scary really at all. There are some moments of gore. There are some deaths in the movie. Most of them are pretty tame. I'd say it's maybe a step above. It is an R-rated movie, so it's not quite PG-13 blood, but um, it's not excessive, and I think that works definitely for some people. You will find out pretty soon that I am someone who always wants movies to be grosser. I want them to be gorier. I prefer that in a movie, but this is watchable, I think, but for people who don't necessarily love gore quite as much, this is an easy watch. I think one of the more horrifying things about this movie is the sort of incel undertones, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in spoilers. But there were some lines, some throwaway lines that were just kind of like they sat with me for a while. They were a little more insidious than I was anticipating from this movie. But other than that, pretty low on the gore, scary spectrum. I think this would be a good like intro sci-fi horror for people who don't love a lot of gore. But yeah, it was genuinely more funny than I think it was scary. So at this point in the video, we are going to talk spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled at all, I totally get it. I'm the same way. Go see it in your local theater. Come back here, tell me what you thought. I would definitely recommend this for a theater watch, maybe even a date watch. Maybe not a perfect date movie, but if you and the person that you spend your time with enjoy sci-fi, thriller, horror, it's a fun watch for sure. So with this movie, I tried to go in as blind as possible. I hadn't actually seen the trailer before watching it. The only thing that I had seen was actually the teaser that was released last year, and so I knew that she was an android. I knew she was a robot, but I didn't know a lot more than that. And I think actually this movie is intended for you to go in not knowing that she's a robot because they really make it ambiguous in the beginning. I almost questioned it, like if I had gotten my information wrong, just because it's very subtle in the beginning. And until after she kills the billionaire Sergei's, she kills him, and she's tied up to the chair, and Jack Quaid says, "Go to sleep, Iris," and her eyes do the little like white white over thing. Um, it was really subtle. It was really subtle. Even the first time he puts her to sleep, it happens in the dark, so you don't see it. So I genuinely questioned for a little bit as to whether or not she was a robot. I was also surprised that she didn't know. Um, there was a moment in the beginning where Jack Quaid asks her about the weather, and she says it in a very sort of straightforward way, like a Siri would answer. So I assumed that she knew or had some sort of understanding about it. Um, Also, just a side note, he calls her Beep Boop, which is a diabolical pet name for like a sex robot. um, but anyway, so her not knowing that she was a robot was actually kind of a tragic moment after she kills Sergei and is sitting in that chair, when Jack Quaid is kind of using different tools to kind of convince her. This was where one of those lines that I was talking about, one of those throwaway lines that kind of really got me, happened, where Jack Quaid tells her that her tears are just water and that he gets them refilled when he takes her in for servicing. And I don't know. I mean, I know that that line was intentional, but that is so insidious to me. Just the idea that you would like have to make sure that you're. I mean, she's much more than a sex robot, but when Jack Quaid purchased her, when Josh purchased her, he did so, but intending for that to be the majority of her purpose. And it's just so creepy. It's such a creepy little line. And I kept thinking about that for a while after watching it. So talking about the murder, so you find out later what really happened, but essentially, and going into it, I think um, people might need a mild trigger warning. The scene is kind of upsetting. Nothing happens or nothing is shown really, but essentially, Sergey, who's the owner of this big house. He's like some kind of shady billionaire. Nobody knows or it's not revealed what he actually does to have this amount of wealth. Tries to sleep with Iris, and basically says that his girlfriend said it would be okay. And so he just physically harasses her to the point where earlier she had found a knife in her pocket. And so she takes the knife out during the struggle and stabs him in the neck, which it seemed like maybe he deserved it. I don't know. Good for her. So we have Iris in the main living room tied up to a chair. And so the rest of the group of friends saw her come into the house covered in blood. She told them what happened, and seems really, remorseful, really freaked out about it. So when Josh turns her off, they tie her up and they go into another room, and it's revealed that this was all sort of an elaborate plot to steal Sergei's money. And so they open a safe and show the other two people there, um, like billions of dollars or whatever. And so the plan is to have them split it, right? So just to remind myself, because I keep using just the actors' names. So it's Iris and Josh, who are the main couple. Josh's friend Kat, who's the one who's dating Sergey, and then Eli and Patrick, who is another couple. These are all the people that are at the house. So in a discussion between Eli, Kat, and Josh, about the money, it is revealed that Patrick is also a robot. Um, And I guess there were some subtle nods to this. The main characters, Josh and Iris, have this like meet cute moment where he drops a bunch of oranges at a grocery store, and he reveals that it's just like a little memory that's implanted in her brain. And when we first meet Eli and Patrick, Patrick is talking about how him and Eli met, and it's a similar kind of like goofy story. So I guess they're trying to let us know that, I don't know. I'm guessing that other people saw it. I didn't, and I was genuinely really surprised when Eli put Patrick to sleep. I had an audible gasp. And I think a couple other people in the theater did as well. So, as they're having this conversation in the other room, Iris frees herself, or mostly frees herself, from the chair. Um, and then a struggle ensues when Josh goes back in the room and Iris escapes with Josh's phone. The next, like the second act of the movie is them sort of chasing her through the woods. And you get this really fun scene where she is looking into the app that Josh uses to control her, and it shows that it can control her voice, her eye color, and also her intelligence, which I believe in the movie was at 40%. So she, knocks it up to 100. And so as they're following her through the woods, she's like coming up with different scenarios in her head to try to figure out how to escape. And she settles on trying to get back to the car and having the car drive her back home. Meanwhile, Eli and Patrick are running through the woods trying to find her. Kat and Josh are in another part of the woods trying to find her. You get this kind of cute moment between Eli and Patrick where it's revealed that Patrick does know that he is a robot, and has genuine like feelings for Eli, which kind of initially gives us the question of how sentient and how human these androids are, even though they're built to be companions. It's also revealed that Josh had used like a cheat code. I don't know, some kind of internet technology lingo that I'm not well versed in, to change Iris's settings, because she's not supposed to accidentally slip up and kill people, right? So her strength can be changed, and her like ability to harm people can also be changed. Another one of those insidious little details is that Iris can't lie, which is it's said a couple times before it's revealed that that's just part of her programming. But that's also just one of those things that's icky, yucky. I don't know. So the climax of the movie, a few characters are killed. Specifically, Eli is shot by Iris, and then Patrick is reset by Josh, to include the same kind of cheats or changing to his programming, so he's become super violent. He eventually finds Iris and takes her back, where you get this scene that was in the teaser where Josh is essentially just messing with her. He turns her settings all the way, her intelligence all the way down to 0, and that's where he tells her to hold her arm into the flame. So she can feel the pain, but she doesn't have like the instincts to move her arm away. And that's another kind of disturbing scene in the movie. And so at the end of this kind of disturbing scene, Josh makes Iris shoot herself in the head. And so we're kind of led to believe that this is the end. And he had already called the people who own the company to come pick her up. So it's kind of this climactic moment where we believe that this is maybe the end of Iris. But of course, because Josh is a dingus, once the people come to pick up the body of Iris, they tell him that all her important bits are in her abdomen and not in her brain. So they're just going to reboot her and look at the footage from her eyeballs. And of course, Jack Quaid can't have that. Josh can't have that. So he sends Patrick after the technicians, and he kills one of them, and then sort of has the other one cornered. and him and Iris have this conversation where she sort of uses some things that he said to Eli to conjure up his love, I guess, for Eli. And then in that moment, which was kind of sad, Patrick puts, I guess, like a cattle prod in his mouth, essentially like short circuiting himself. And so then, with the help of the other technician, Iris, now that she's fully rebooted, goes back in, and that's where we get like the final scene in the movie. So now that she's rebooted, she allows herself the ability to lie. She has her intelligence boosted up. Um, and she and Jack Quaid have this big showdown, where she eventually stabs him in the head with a like an electric bottle opener, which we'd seen a handful of times. Um, I knew that was going to come back. I think that death is another like nod to the like automation technology narrative throughout the movie, right? It's this like big fancy electric bottle opener that apparently doesn't have any safeguards because that thing went straight into his brain. But I mean, she got him. And then you have this glorious montage with some nods to Terminator, it seems like, of Iris kind of taking the like skin off of her damaged metallic hand and kind of doing one of these with this metallic claw. She gets in a cool car. She drives down the highway. She looks at another girl who's probably another companion robot, um, almost like predicting maybe like an uprising of companion robots. Who knows? But the ending is very satisfying in this movie. So some other themes, right, or looking more in depth, I guess, at the themes, right, this definitely has um, some commentary, some feminist commentary, right, on um, robots replacing women or replacing like companions, replacing, you know, having all of these features of like a perfect partner without any of like the messy parts of human relationships, right? And the way that Jack Quaid's character Josh kind of talks mirrors some like incel type um I guess ideology, especially at the end when he has her at the dinner table and and he's talking to her, just talking about like being a good guy and all this stuff. Yeah, it's kind of gross. And also, this, I think, this is a movie that was made with the rise in AI and thinking about like the powers of these kind of sentient, almost sentient, very capable technological advances, right? Kind of wondering these robots, like how similar are they to people? And do they have thoughts, right? Do they have aspirations, things like that? And I think that's kind of really alluded to in the scene with Patrick, where he recalls Eli and his love for Eli, which allows him to short circuit himself rather than killing the other technician or killing Iris. So everything in the movie, all of the automated things kind of work against the characters, the human characters, right? Because you have the car that I guess that works against Iris. But the car is supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to get in a car and drive somewhere, but you can't because it needs Josh's voice. And then, the robots themselves are meant to be these like, um, peaceful, non harmful companions. But then they start working against the human characters as well. And then ultimately, you have this corkscrew, this automated corkscrew that ultimately ends up killing Jack Quaid. I did find it funny though that the main thing that they're listening to music on is a CD. I guess it was kind of like a blend, maybe a nod to like Stepford Wives era stuff. So I think overall, I would give this movie a pretty easy 4.5. It wasn't perfect by any means, but I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. Everything about it was sound, technically at least. The characters were great. It was funny. It had a decent amount of gore. It had a lot of the things that I look for in a movie. So I did really enjoy my viewing experience. This is probably one I'd watch again as well. I think there's some talk about the potential of a sequel. I don't know if it would be something necessary. I think Iris is a great character, but she kind of lacks the like camp um, of like Megan or something to like appear in a bunch of sequels. I think this movie operating on its own, I think it's solid on its own. I don't think it needs a sequel, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Well, that's it for my companion review. I'm hoping that February brings some good new releases too, some that I enjoy. Not that I didn't enjoy the first half of my January watches, but they were very heavy and just kind of maybe not my type of movies. But still a lot of good releases coming up. In February, I'll be watching Hard Eyes and The Monkey, which I'm looking forward to. So look out for those videos as well. Feel free to comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts were. And like, subscribe, follow me on Letterboxd, follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to make this a regular thing, so I appreciate all the support.